And I could see, like in the gloom, I was like, oh my gosh, sunset is full size.
So today, my guest is a South African born and bred big wave charger, spearfisher, family man, mentor, and a whole lot more. Dougal Paterson, welcome to A Classic, mate.
Hey, Dan, how's it doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, no problem at all, mate. Happy to have you. So take me back to your younger days, mate. Give us a bit of background on yourself.
Okay, so I mean, I'm a highly unlikely candidate to become a big wave surfer. I grew up inland during the apartheid era in South Africa, a dark era in our country's history, and in a place called the City of Gold in Johannesburg. So I was born in 1975, which makes me 48 years old now. And from my earliest memories, I remember just longing or being intrigued with the shape of water, and the idea of being able to stand on water and ride waves. And we used to go on holiday when I was a kid to the coast, where I learned how to first sort of ride waves lying down and then slowly standing up. And then sort of toward the end of my school, I took the opportunity to write my notes, my parents a runaway note, and I ran to Jeffreys Bay where I learned how to surf. And it's a place I've been running to ever since. I returned home after a couple of weeks, did my university degree, and married the love of my life. And we've been living in Cape Town, South Africa ever since.
Beautiful, mate. Short and sweet. So back then, what was surfing like? Like big wave surfing wouldn't have been... Oh, yeah. Now there's a bit more of a career in it, I guess you'd say. But back then, it wasn't as well known as it is these days, I guess. So how was that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So, geez, obviously, growing up inland, the only footage that we saw of surfing would come through it was at the end of the era of a guy called Shaun Thompson, who was South Africa's only ever world champion. So we would see pictures of Shaun Thompson, and it was normally like small waves in Hawaii getting barreled, a pipeline. At my junior school, there was this poster up on the wall of Shaun Thompson squashed into the tiniest little barrel. And I used to love it. I used to stare at this kind of water folding over him. But no, I mean, big wave surfing in our consciousness happened in Hawaii, and it only ever happened at Waimea Bay. That's the only place. So it was only really in my early 20s when suddenly this wave came. I remember seeing one day, I was a surfer already. I've been surfing for a while, fairly competent by that stage. And suddenly our local magazine had this picture of this dude standing in the biggest wave I'd ever seen, which was in the hometown where I now live. And it's someone had towed him on with a rubber duck standing on a surfboard. And this way, I didn't know that you could get waves that big in South Africa. And that was the beginning of it, for me anyway.
And so you wanted to big wave surf the whole way through, or when you ran away, was it just the goal just to surf?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to surf, I mean, because I wasn't aware that you could ride big waves at that stage. But when I was down there, we'd been in Jeffreys Bay. I've been in Jeffreys Bay for a couple of weeks. And the first decent swell that came through at Super Tubes, I mean, I couldn't surf it yet. I was just stood on the rocks, and waves that's, like 8-foot waves. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, man, guys can ride this thing. And to me, they looked like I don't know. It was like Marvel superheroes, I mean, I was 17 at that stage, but just watching these guys and just this intense feeling of longing, like I wanted to do that and be out there. So, once we moved to Cape Town, which was like a year later, where there were, again, I wasn't fully aware that you get truly big waves yet. I hadn't seen that picture on the front of the magazine yet. That only came out in my early 20s. But at age 18, there were bigger waves breaking, and went out in them one day, and I quickly realized that some people were scared of big waves, but I wasn't, because I could hold my breath for a long time, and I wasn't afraid of jumping off high rocks into the ocean or into the lake. I always wanted to jump off, the highest point higher than anybody else, and I could hold my breath longer than anybody else. And I was like, wow, maybe that's my way. I could never be athletically, an incredible technical surfer, but if I can just take the biggest wave I possibly can, all I've got to do is stand up and make it to the bottom of the wave and bottom turn, and suddenly I'm a badass. So that's where it began. I was like,
yeah,
I'm going to become a good big wave surfer.
You've definitely done that, mate. So you started at J Bay, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Eh?
So how did it feel going from J Bay? You started surfing at one of the best waves in the world.
Yeah.
And then going to realize, did you think everywhere was like that?
That's a good question. So, well, I mean, because, I had my time at Jeffreys Bay, and then when we got back to Johannesburg, we lived a couple more months. Then my whole family moved down to Cape Town. And when you get to Cape Town, pretty quickly realized that, what was happening in J Bay was special. Because, down in Cape Town where I live, I call it the blunt tip of Africa. It's exceptionally raw and wild and cold. So it was, I kind of, once we got to Cape Town, it began like a journey of just riding bad waves, the whole time, bad onshore, big, cold waves. And that for me became completely normal. I was like, well, this is the way it goes. Like, you ride big, cold, bad waves the whole time. And our wetsuits weren't particularly good. They were good enough. It's not the days where you're surfing in rugby T-shirts and a pair of shorts, But, it was like 3-2 and we didn't have booties and hoodies and stuff. So we were freezing cold the whole time and riding bad waves. So I kind of had to improve as a surfer, just riding bad waves. And I still haven't, whenever over the years when I've done trips across to Hawaii or California or Bali or Indonesia or wherever we've gone, it's still, when I stand on a perfect wave, it blows my mind. It's almost boring. Quickly gets boring. Perfect waves quickly get boring for me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. You need a bit of a variety.
Yeah.
So that step up, so you started at J Bay and then you went down, then stepping it up to obviously some of the stuff you surf now is obviously incredible. So was that a gradual sort of step up, or whatever swell came, you just had to go, went out, took it on? Like how'd you step up from where you are to where you were to big waves?
Yeah. That's a good question. The step up moment. So I mean, my kind of step up moment actually fortuitously came again through Jeffreys Bay, just because I was at we moved to Cape Town and then I went to a university town which was on the coast and we started surfing a lot, which was near to Jeffreys Bay. So I was able to start visiting it again a bit more, and as my surfing improved, I could ride better waves. And there was one morning, at least I was 19 or 20 years old, but we surfed super tubes in the morning and it was beautiful 4 to 6 foot waves. And I went back and had a sleep and I came back and suddenly the waves were 3-4 times overhead. And I was with a bunch of rogue Australians like yourself, not all Australians, but rogue, most of them are.
Plenty are.
Yeah, but a bunch of rogue Australians who said, yeah, Dougal, you should come and surf with us. And they managed to cajole me off the rocks. And we went out. It's the biggest waves I've been into up until that point. Still very good size for what I would surf today at Super Tubes. And when we got out there were 2 Hawaiian legends there, a guy called Noah Johnson and a guy called Brock Little, who, both who went on to be absolute luminaries of big wave surfing. And they were full, stone cold killers, alpha males, not really making eye contact. And watching these guys surf these waves, again, it gave me I was like, wow, okay, how do we? So it was, I was still pretty much entry level surfer at that stage, but I managed to, by hook or by crook, claw myself onto a few of these waves. And I still remember the feeling of standing on my feet, and the sensation was like trying to stand on the back of a serpent that was sort of uncoiling itself. And I could feel the energy coming up through my feet. I was still at a stage where I was just kind of learning to balance and bottom turn. And I could feel this thing coming up through my feet. And I could see this thing opening up and moving down, whatever, just this open face down the line. And I made a couple of these waves, and I was like, okay, I can do this. Like this, that was a major big step up for me. I mean, when the session ended, I still had no idea how to get in, and I spent half an hour being still one of my horrifying experiences, getting washed up and down the rocks. I was crying up and down the rocks, rolling up and down, smashing my feet and my board. I couldn't come in properly. I didn't know how to read everything, but by the time I got back up onto the beach, I was like, I'm in, bro. Big waves is for me.
And that's the moment.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah, good. So family life these days, mate, obviously the stuff you do is pretty, it's not without its own dangers. How do they all feel about what you do?
Oh, that's a very hard one. That's a hard one, Dan.
Bit of love-hate.
Yeah, no, it's a hard, that's a very hard one, especially now at age 48, becoming more and more cognizantly aware of it. So it's a very difficult one. I took me a long time to really start surfing Dungeons, which is our premier, biggest, gnarliest, heaviest wave, which we'll get to talking about. But I told my wife at one stage, hey, I'll never surf Dungeons. I'm fine with Sunset Reef and all the other waves, but if I can surf those, I won't surf Dungeons. And she'd worked with me as a journalist in the early 2000s on a big wave contest that Red Bull ran there, which is called the Big Wave Africa. So there was a lot of media hype around that, a lot of talk, and we got to interview maybe 10 or 15 of these surfers, each of them pontificating about how horrific and terribly dangerous, how many sharks are at Dungeons, and what a terrible place. And each one, near-death experience after near-death experience after, and so she was like, geez, it's just the worst place on earth to surf. So when I said, okay, I'll never surf it, she was okay, good. But then as the years passed, and I slowly realized, my gosh, I'm not just an entry-level surfer. I'm competent. And then, I mean, without sounding proud, but I mean, like there were days where, where I was often riding the biggest waves, and at least surfing parallel to at the same level with guys who I thought were the Marvel superheroes. I was like, I can actually do this. I'm not just surviving now. I'm surfing well. But but it was very difficult when I crossed the point where I said I want to surf Dungeons. And I think one of the lowest points that our marriage has ever been at, I mean, there would, I would say the lowest point our marriage has been at was a day when I thought I was on, yes, maybe you can surf Dungeons. And then I made a plan. I put a little expedition together with a few of my other friends, and we went out and surfed it. And I came back, and she was like, you lied to me. And I don't lie to my wife, I was like, I didn't lie. I thought it was maybe. But I'd surfed there, and it was terrible. And it was, death till death do us part with my wife. There'll never be another woman for me, but it's the closest I ever came to cheating on my wife, and she was like, no, you lied to me, bro.
Yep.
So it was terrible, and that set me back a long time. So I've had to wait a long time for her blessing, for her to to say, all right, you can do this. And even though I was already a competent, experienced surfer who'd already had a season in Hawaii and many other places, I was 37 by the time I finally stood on my first wave at Dungeons.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll get into Dungeons for sure, but I suppose with the dangers that wave comes with, and all the other waves you surf and the bigger waves, you got to be prepared. So how do you stay prepared, physically, mentally, all of that? How do you get ready for it?
Yeah. So I think like with many athletes, professional athletes, or people who live like this, unpaid athletes or whatever, you learn to love the physical preparation, because you can't ride big waves every week. Sometimes you can't ride big waves for months at a time. So to fill the time, you end up preparing. and the preparation gives you like a sense of it. So sometimes, when it's been flat for a long time, I take my guns and I just paddle straight out as far as I can into the ocean. As far as I can get. I get as far off the land as I can. Sometimes it's enough to just get off the land. And sometimes like that act of just riding the big wave, the paddling the big gun gives you the sense of, making friends with the thing that you're going to use when it comes to life and death situations But then, I live a life of preparation. It's like constantly training for a marathon, never knowing when it's going to happen. So I've got all different ways of preparing, it goes from holding my breath in the swimming pool to running on the mountain, to doing these weird looking exercises to strengthen my core, to spearfishing. And then, I can, we did a breath hold course the other day where I held my breath for 5 minutes. And I was like, how did I do 5 minutes? I'm like, how? And it took me, and I figured out afterwards, it's because I've been playing, the didgeridoo. The didge?
Right, yeah.
So I've been playing the didge the whole time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been exercising my diaphragm.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
yeah, okay.
And because I was like, and it was relatively easy. I didn't feel great, but I probably could have gone a little bit longer. But yeah, so all different ways of preparation, one of which is playing the didge.
Right. Yeah, no, I never thought of that. I've actually got one here too, so I might have to start playing with it. Yeah.
You're on.
Yeah, there you go. And so you stay prepared, and that, I'd say that helps your mental state for doing it, because you got to have a certain amount of confidence going out and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then, did you do any kind of mental training at all?
I've got friends whose primary gig, like, one of my friends is he's in the Jaws event, and the Eddie, and he's just had the most horrific injury on his forehead, and then now he's injured his ribs and whatever, and he's going over to potentially the Jaws event's going to run next Friday. Poor man, he can barely lie on a surfboard at the moment. But we were talking about it yesterday, and his primary way of preparing is like he visualizes the whole time. So, like if I also do, I've taken a leaf from his book, and I do a fair amount of visual preparation, where if you have a good day, I try to remember the waves, and as I'm going to sleep, I re-ride those waves over and over again. I spoke to a guy also who's accomplished alpinist, not alpinist, rock climber, and that's what he'd do. Like when he'd climb during the day, he would go to sleep at night just remembering and re-climbing those routes. So yeah, I guess it's more like reliving the waves as opposed to mentally preparing. But yeah,
yep.
There is
outside of that, there is. Yeah, I understand what you mean there. Yeah, but outside of that, what sort of equipment do you run with, and why?
So I kind of, because I was a latecomer to surfing, I developed a penchant. I don't know how to say it right. A penchant. To hide the fact that I wasn't the most technically skilled, what I did was I started riding alternative equipment, in order to rather develop my style. Because I was limited in what I would do. I figured, all right, I better learn to ride it stylishly. If I'm doing simple things, if I'm doing a bottom turn, I may as well do a stylish bottom turn, or if I just learn to take a nice line. And different alternative equipment forces you to take different lines, and it makes you surf better because the equipment's so rogue and limiting. So, I ride everything from tiny boards for me, what's small, in this sort of mid 5 foot range, up to my biggest board's an asymmetrical twin fin that's 11.3 long and 4.5 inches thick. And then I ride everything
4.5 inches thick.
Yeah.
It's
but it's like in relation, it's like that, And that thing, sometimes when you're riding big waves, I've got like a 13-foot, 14-foot leash, and the wind picks that thing up in the full extent of the leash, and it goes up spinning like a kite, and it goes over your head, in a sweeping arc of death, Jeez, anyway.
Yeah.
So I've ridden very small boards in big waves and very big boards in big waves, and then been towed into it. And then I also spent a period of time trying to be the guy who could paddle into big waves with no fins, which is anyway. So I've been very experimental with my equipment.
Yep. And so you said you moved down to Cape Town, was it?
Yes.
And the water temperatures there is a little bit different to what you were used to.
Yeah.
So what sort of water temperature do you run with?
Do you do degrees or Fahrenheit, eh? Do you know?
We do degrees, yeah, but
degrees, yeah.
You can work it out either way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of cold gets down to 9 degrees for us. Yeah. So we kind of in Cape Town between 9 and maybe sort of 13 degrees. So
right.
Yeah, most
Fresh.
of the time, yeah, we surf with 4 to 5 mil wetsuits and hoodies and booties the whole time.
Yep.
But it gets cold, and it's very hot outside. So on the coldest days, it can be like 34, 35 degrees outside, and then like the water's 9 degrees. So
really,
you feel like your teeth are bleeding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
Oh.
We'll jump into some waves. We'll jump into some breaks. But you told me you had you'd moved to where you currently live now. I'll let you pronounce it because I don't think I can. But
Okay.
there was a bunch of criteria, and two of those was you've got that two of the planet Earth's rarities are located right near you, being the two fingers. So I really want to dive deep into both of them. So we might do one at a time. So can you tell me about it, why that formation is a rarity? And then obviously Dungeons is sitting straight on one of them. So we'll get into that.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. So yeah, I call them, planet Earth has a couple of geographical rarities, which is, as you say, it's like fingers of rock or a shelf that extends just the right amount of distance, like off the coastline, where big waves come out of deep water and they slow down just enough to break without losing too much of their height and power. Because as waves come closer to the shore, they, the ocean bed goes from deep to shallow, and waves kind of diminish in size and then they break. But if you've got a place where it suddenly gets shallow, a good distance off the land, then a full-size wave can still break like that. But if that happens too quickly, then you get gigantical waves, which is what you see in Nazare, which is all those pictures of the guys, the castle in the foreground, and these guys looking like it's Photoshop waves. Like that, like waves that size, they're always being towed onto them because you can't paddle into them. The waves move too fast. That's the main thing. It's not that we're not brave enough. It's just the waves move too fast. Yep. So with our geographical rarities, there's a very narrow window where the waves have to, over a certain height, they move too fast for you to catch. But just below that size, there's a window of opportunity to paddle into them. So we get very big waves here that you can still paddle into. We use very long boards, and you've got a narrow window of a couple seconds where you can briefly match the speed of the wave with just your hands and your body strength. And then if you position yourself, you match the speed, and then you can drop down. And then as soon as you're on the wave and it's breaking, you're dropping down, you immediately accelerate to where you're going faster than the wave, which will give you an opportunity to bottom turn and then position yourself on the wave. So if that finger of rock is too close to the land, the waves diminish in size, and then it's something that becomes more accessible. But if it's too far out and it gets shallow too quickly, then the waves are too big. But then there's that middle point. So we have, like, Africa has two of the world's biggest waves, two of those geographical rarities. And there are a few of them around the world which have communities of surfers that live around them, around these geographical rarities. And then you have like these communities of surfers who live around those geographical rarities will, when money and time allows, you will try to visit those other places. So similar to alpinists who will try to, climb as many of the world's peaks as they can, we try to visit those other places and surf as many of these waves as we can.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because there is a pretty solid South African big wave surfing crew. So they all not originate, but they all sort of hang around that area, do they? Is that where they all sort of moved or lived?
Yeah.
And they just come up with the wave.
Yeah. I mean, you have a few very good surfers who live further up the coast, who are very technical, highly skilled surfers who can come down here and then ride these waves well. But those guys, in order to get really good, have to come down and surf our big waves often. But for the most part, it's people who live like around here who have the best big wave guys are those who have the most access to big waves. And then because you can't predict when they're coming, and because of the infrequency of them, it's easier if you live in front of them. But one thing that I realized pretty quickly, like we have, one of our best guys is, or most famous, is a guy called Grant Twiggy Baker, who's had an amazing success as a big wave surfer. I think he's been a world champion a few times. But he said like a number of decades ago, he said that he's gotten so good at big waves because of surfing dungeons. He said if you can surf dungeons, you can surf anywhere. And that was my experience when we first went over to Hawaii on our first trip. And I was terrified. I was like, geez, Hawaii, like since I was a little boy at school, seen these pictures, there many ride mountains, those guys, Brock Little and Noah Johnson from J Bay. Like, I was like, geez, okay, now I've surfed South Africa and I've figured this out. Now I'm going to go to the big leagues. And the first time I surfed Waimea Bay, like, again, it sounds like I'm making claims, but that's not the point. Like, the point is, I rode 14 waves on the first time I ever surfed Waimea Bay, and I was the deepest on all of them except one. And with each wave I rode, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so easy, because it's clean and it's predictable and it's warm. So it wasn't easy, but it felt easy. And then when I came back home, my assumption was, oh my gosh, I am now going to be the destroyer. Watch out, I'm going to be the best. And we got out to my local breakover in, Sunset Reef, which I surfed the whole time. It's my home wave. I love it. And I was truly, utterly terrified. Like first time back, I was terrified. I was like, holy smokes. Like, what's going on here? This is surely the gnarliest day ever at sunset. Like, what's going on? There's waves bumping and it's lurching and all these things. And I only got one wave that day, and I was so terrified. And that's when I realized what Twiggy was saying. Like, our waves are raw and wild and unpredictable and cold and very difficult. And so when you can surf our waves and you go to perfect good waves that are predictable, you can surf anywhere really. And yeah, that's been my experience. So and that translates to all of us guys who live here and grow up here. Many of us have gone over to Jaws and Chile and Chopu, even in different places, and Australia and slabs and found that we are at least as equipped to surf those waves as the other guys.
Okay.
Quite quickly.
So what is it about dungeons that makes it so dangerous and so much different? Obviously, if the other ones are really predictable, I understand that. But then coming off, what is it that really makes it different from everywhere else?
I like your questions, Bru. I feel like we could hang around, have a barbecue, play the didge, have some beer, throw a shrimp on the barbecue. Yeah. Do you actually
We can do that sometime. Sorry, mate.
you actually throw shrimps on the barbie?
We use prawns. We don't call them shrimp.
So where does it come from? Like, let's throw
I got
shrimp
no
on
idea.
the barbie.
Yeah, I got no idea. We call them prawns. I definitely eat prawns. Foster's as well. I don't think I've ever seen someone drink a Foster's beer, ever.
Aren't shrimps like tiny things? Like, aren't they like
Maybe. We get like tiger prawns, and they're sort of that, and we get big prawns. I love prawns, but shrimp, I don't know. I don't know the difference. I don't know much about them, but I've never once called them shrimp. But obviously, I've heard that saying a lot.
Mate, let's throw a tiger prawn on the barbie.
Tiger prawn. Yeah, they're my favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Why is dungeons so dangerous?
Yeah, back to it.
Okay. So it's I would say dungeons has gotten a lot less dangerous. Just because initially guys were jumping off like a fishing boat in 3 mil wetsuits with ridiculous surfboards. Yeah. And then kind of over time it's you were jumping off with 4 mil wetsuits with other people watching you. So and
Right.
then it kind of and then at least we got hoodies so that at least we were warm. And then you started wearing like those like we call them impact vests,
Yep.
which operates as a shock absorber and then like it's a life jacket basically. And then when the jet skis came along, then at least you had guys, when you snapped your board, someone could come and pull you out or get your board. So it's become increasingly less dangerous over time. And then with the inflation vests, well, for anyone who doesn't know what an inflation vest, it's when you're flying in an airplane and they say if the plane's going to crash on water, reach under your chair and pull it out and put that thing on. The cabin crew, and they say blow this or pull that. So I mean, we got a if it's if you get held on for a long time and you feel the envelope, that separates this world and the next getting particularly thin, then you pull this and you go up like a soda stream bottle. So that's made it all a lot safer. Yeah, and the fact that everybody prepares now, and at least, but so that said, maybe I'm saying that just for my wife who's going to be listening to this later.
Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that question, should I?
Well, maybe that's just perfectly safe. Deborah, perfectly safe, my love. It's incredible. It's pretty much like going bowling now.
Well, the next one's... No, you go, mate. You keep going.
What's the next one? We can move away from how dangerous it is.
The next one she's probably already aware of, but obviously that part of the world's known for big sharks. So have you got any experiences out there, and what's it really like?
Oh, man, yeah. The sharks is a weird one. We because a couple of years ago we had what turns out, I thought great whites were the apex predator, but it turns out there's another apex predator that rips the livers out of great white sharks, which are the orcas. So we had a couple of orcas that turned up a few years ago, and I thought it was like an urban legend. But anyway, I'm a photographer and a documentary filmmaker, and we shot a documentary on great whites for National Geographic. You did it a little while ago, etc. And so I spent a lot of time with shark scientists, and I verified the story. All that to say, I verified the story with our one of our scientists. And what happened is, almost within a couple of weeks of these orcas showing up, the great whites left like False Bay and the surrounds and the various seal islands because orcas were starting to rip their livers out. And so it seems that great whites are bullies, because as soon as like the enforcer shows up, they're gone. So anyway, I love orcas. The enforcers showed up, and around dungeons, there's generally sharks congregate around the nearest food source, which is a seal island. So dungeons breaks off that finger of rock, the geographical rarity is where it breaks the surface is an island where there's like thousands and thousands of barking, reeking seals, which is like a fast food one-stop shop for great whites. But when the orcas showed up, so we surfed dungeons for years in, fearing our life. Actually, I wasn't surfing it during that era, but other guys did it, and they used to call it, what do they call it? Shark Alley. Yeah. You'd paddle over Shark Alley to get to dungeons. But no, I mean, like great whites was a factor, but it's not really a factor there anymore, though they've kind of started to come back a bit. But that was a big part of the ethos and fear of dungeons, was like, not only can the wave kill you, but you can be lying there, and you get attacked by a great white.
Yeah, and that's terrifying. Yeah. Like, I don't know how often it happens there.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, we can move on from that. Sharks scare me. So.
Yeah.
But you mentioned your first wave at dungeons. You were 37?
Yeah. Oh, nice.
So what was that like? How'd you feel finally doing it?
Yeah, so it was, geez, man, it was a truly, yeah, it was, you have these moments in your life, I call them, where you go from sleep, from like dreaming to waking, I call it, these moments where you go from dreaming about being somebody to becoming that thing or that person. It's an incredible privilege, and it can happen with someone, with songwriters, someone who writes a song that's maybe one day he goes into a public place and someone's singing that song, or somebody who, on a shallower level, to a kind of car that you always dreamed about or something, or someone who marries the girl of his dreams or whatever, like we all get to experience it. It's not just, extreme athletes, but that was one of those moments, someone who grew up inland looking at pictures of Sean Thompson squashed into a little wave, or seeing Noah Johnson and Brock Little surfing these giant waves, while barely being able to stand and getting grated on the rocks and all that stuff. And suddenly it was like, all right, this is the day. I actually have my wife's blessing. I can do this. And normally now I've got a jet ski parked outside that we use to get there, or we go on a friend's boat or whatever. But I went with my friend Patrick, who's also my age, and it was our first time. And I said, Brie, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. I call it like the legacy way. We're going to honor this thing. So what we did was, with our giant whatever surfboards, we climbed in over the mountains with the mountain at the back, over the ridge. You climb in. It's a very steep climb in with these boards. And then, we paddled in. It was still Shark Alley at that stage. So I came in just at the end of that. And, get in the water and you're terrified. It's terrifying paddling over Shark Alley. The two of us, first time out to dungeons, out to the back. And when we got out there were the Marvel superheroes, my heroes, the dudes doing stuff I never thought that I could do. The kind of big, strong, loud alpha males, the guys who'd surf Jaws in Hawaii, and Mavericks and everything, and coming in off the back. And yeah, I mean, I still remember the first wave of dungeons that I paddled into, and I can feel the draw. I could feel the draw pulling up the wave, and I could feel it, and I tipped over, and yeah, and I stood up, and I felt that same sensation of the serpent uncoiling below, under my feet, and my feet, you could feel it coming up through my toes, my ankles, my knees, up into my body, and I crashed, and I could feel it, and it just, I dropped on into this wave, and it was a moment of suspended, am I going to live? Bottom turned, and the waves opened up in front of me, and suddenly I was that guy. And I mean, I'm a man of faith, I'm a man. I'm a Christian, and the only thing I could do was I could yell the name Jesus, because my biggest gratitude, my source of, I've got a heartbeat, and I'm breathing, and I'm riding this wave, and that's all I could do. And I kicked out of that wave, and I cried. I was like, jeez. did this. Yeah, it's incredible from sleeping to waking. And it was the same when when I surfed Jaws, it was that same experience. Paddling out through the channel at Jaws, going off the rocks with my wife standing on the rocks this time, not knowing if I could live or not, if I could survive this, I don't know, and paddling out and going from, it was that sensation of paddling out there, of going, I can't, is this me? Am I here? Like, am I doing this? Is this possible? And it was going from incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So outside of that, the WSL actually came to you guys, didn't they, about a contest a while back? Yeah. And they only held one. So walk me through that and what actually happened. I think you were in the contest yourself.
Yeah. So that was, as I mentioned, kind of between 98 and 2008. So for 10 years, Red Bull held something called the Red Bull Big Wave Africa. And that's really what alerted us to truly the possibility of truly big waves in Africa, like an African big wave. Because the guys came out, there were a handful of guys who'd ever surfed out there before. Most of the guys didn't even know there was a wave. And they held a contest there, and over 10 years, there was an incredible community of people who started surfing those waves, and they would come. They had like a month or 6 weeks or 2 month waiting period, and all these guys would congregate and they would ride the wave, win it, and they had these sessions. And the wave, they only ran the contest a few times because the waves weren't big enough, and incredible media hype surrounding it. And it birthed the blue-collared big wave surfers, of which I benefited from that, even though I wasn't part of that. I was looking on the outside, looking in very much. But when that came to an end, what you had was you had a group of people who were competent, world-traveling big wave surfers, most of them very competitive and nothing to compete in. But what had happened is we'd galvanized very much as communities loaded kind of it like a group of people who cared about the same thing and who lived their lives in such a way that we were available and training for this thing, but we couldn't compete. So we had a space a couple of years with nothing going on, and then I think it was in about 2015 or something that the WSL approached some of the people in our community or who had been part of surfing in these events and said, we would like to come back and have an event at Dungeons. Because there was at that stage, there was a world tour, or there was I think they had like 6 or 7 contests that you could surf in, and you could legitimately be a guy who could compete in these things, and then they had a world champion at the end. Anyway, and so they wanted to do something at Dungeons. And we came together as a group of people. We had this big meeting, and everybody who cared about it was interested, which probably was about 30 guys, many of whom were very accomplished guys. We had a vote, like, do we want a contest like this here? And I went there, I was like, dude, I went there ready to vote this contest on, and we got there, and the guys who were invited to be in it, I wasn't one of them. They were all advocating, saying, no, we don't want to do this. This is not right. The WSL don't want to give us, they want to say we can only have 3 locals in there, but we want what seemed reasonable at the time. We want 7 or 8 locals in there, which we've subsequently realized was ludicrous at best. And then they wanted the best guys in the world to come, and anyway, in the end, everybody sort of voted, unanimously, we don't want there to be a contest at Dungeons. And everybody felt good about it, and that's amazing, and we all were patting each other on the back and stuff. And but so we didn't get it, and that was that. They never came back and asked us again, and we were left without a contest, and there was, kind of like a hangover, so to speak, there of people regretting what we'd done. So after a couple of years, we got together and initiated something. We found our own sponsor and said, let's do an event at Dungeons, of which we did have one, and that was in 2017. long way to tell you that we did finally have our own event then, and I did get to compete in that.
And how was it?
That was amazing.
Yeah, I bet.
It turned out on the day. It turned out to be 20 to 30 foot waves, which is at it's the top end of what you can paddle into using your hands and your arms on a big board. Like I would say a few people. Yeah, there's a lot of discrepancy on like how you measure the size of a wave. Some people, like the World's Guinness Book of Records, will say there's like someone's paddled into, I don't know what it is, like a 70-foot wave. But the reality is, you can't paddle into a 70-foot wave. It's the scale. Like
yes,
this Guinness Book of Records 70-foot wave is Hawaiian size 35-foot wave. You can't physically paddle into a wave that size. So anyway, we had waves that were up to 30 foot on that day, and it was truly terrifying. And I had an amazing day, and it was another kind of going from dreaming to waking moment, because suddenly some of my heroes and the Marvel superheroes guys didn't get waves, and they were scared and they couldn't paddle onto these waves, or they were wiping out, whatever. And I was fine, and I rode the biggest wave of the day, and I didn't make it, so I didn't get a score on it, but I had a big one. But I was one of the guys, I was just one of the guys, and I did well. And some of the guys I'd mentored even kind of, were the best guys out there. So it was an incredible experience, unbelievable experience. And we haven't had one since.
I was just going to ask that. No one's come back and suggested it or anything?
No, hey? It's not economically viable, Dan. The problem is, the waves don't show up.
Okay.
Dungeons can go. We can go for a year and a half without being able to paddle in at dungeons. So if you have a contest, it can just not happen.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you mentioned sponsors there, actually, and that raised a question. Do you guys, as big wave surfers, do you ever get help? Do you ever get sponsors come to you guys? Because obviously the stuff you're doing, you're putting your whole body on the line, and you're doing some of the most incredible surfing in the world. Do any of these sponsors ever come to you guys and help out, or get involved in any way?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I've been as very much like a blue collar slugger who pays his own way. I've been very fortunate over the years to have people, come alongside me and give me stuff. At the moment, like I've got guys. They're a German manufacturer. They're called Ion wetsuits, and they're in the kiteboarding world. Really, they come out of the kiteboarding world. But we had a professional surfer staying here. She's a lady surfer at the end of last year, and it's like wetsuits are a part of the Marvel superhero persona. Spider-Man's not Spider-Man without his crazy suit, or like Wonder Woman or whatever, they're not, when he's Peter Parker, as soon as you put the suit on. So growing up inland, first time I put a wetsuit on, I was like, whoa, anything. So I've always loved wetsuits. So I mean, I've really made a real study on how wetsuits are made, and I've partnered with different people trying to get this, I worked with a brand called Finister for a while, where we really moved their wetsuit forward, and I was, how do we do this? How do we do this suit and make the best kind of thing? And so, I mean, anyway, but had this pro surfer staying with us, and this Ion wetsuit, I pulled this wetsuit inside out, this Marvel superhero suit. And I was like, my gosh, ergonomically, this is unbelievable. Look at these materials, look at these panels here, look how they've sealed the stuff and this and that. So anyway, just all that to say, that's how I get sponsors or people to partner with you. When you see something you really feel like, all right, this is going to, I like this thing. And maybe this company can benefit from me telling a story about their product. So I approached them and I said, these suits are amazing. So at the moment, Ion give me wetsuits. But then, over the years, like I've got a big wave surfboard above me, with someone who, because they know that I love alternative equipment, they shaped me an alternative board. And then I've had gear over time, and then little bit, I say I'm a sponsored surfboard rider because I insure, with my insurance company, I insure all of my surfboards. So whenever I snap a surfboard,
Right.
I claim for it. So I haven't paid for a surfboard in like 10 years. So I've always got great gear.
Yeah.
I find ways by hook or by crook,
Yeah.
we
As you
do
do
get
for an
some-
obsession.
Yeah, and because I'm a communicator, that's my career. I make film and then I shoot pictures. Like I know how to talk and talk to people. So
yeah.
So I haven't paid for a wetsuit for a long time, and I haven't paid for a surfboard for a long time, and I've managed to find a connect between my commercial career and my. I call my big wave surfing a career because I train like an athlete. And I found a couple of years ago, I don't want to tell people I'm an amazing photographer, or I do this and that, which is, as a commercial photographer, it's a big part of you. You have to sell yourself. You have to make people believe that you're some sort of visual alchemist. But I'm like, hey, I don't want to be that guy. Like, what can I talk about that's interesting? So I've created this persona of like this big wave surfer guy, so that as quickly as possible, I can say, yeah, this is my portfolio, this is my work. But hey, you want to hear a real story, And then I talk about the big wave surfing, and so over the years, like I've gotten to do some keynote speaking. I've gotten to talk to large groups of people. I've gotten to talk at conferences. I've gotten to people I've kind of become a little bit of a quote guy. In some of the local movies, if they want to talk to like a big wave elder quote guy, they know they can sit me down and I'll say something about life and death and fear and hope and family and, a common man's philosopher. And so I get to communicate around it. And then we had an amazing experience with the brand I mentioned earlier, Finister, where a guy's become my business partner in the commercial realm of shooting films and movies. Rick made a documentary film about pretty much about the group of men who turned down that contest for WSL, about the men in that room, about us, like the kind of rogue, self-sponsored and guys who ride dungeons. He made a movie about us, which is very much narrative driven. Was
that Satori?
That's it.
Sorry to cut in. Satori, I've seen it. Great. It's a great movie.
Did you like it? You watched it?
I loved it. Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Okay, hang on. This is your chance now. What did you like about it? I'll pick up.
The storytelling. I like the authenticity of the people in it. So from their experience, like what we're doing now, like I want to hear your experience through your eyes and everything. And that's what I loved about that one. It really got into the people as well. And, I could relate to them in a way. I'm not surfing those kind of waves, but I could really relate to them.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I want to ask you a question now about that movie.
Okay, shoot.
Because Rick and I went around the UK and Scotland, and we showed that movie 8 or 9 times in a row, speaking to rooms full of people, doing storytelling, and we got really good at it. And at the end of the movie, like often the storytelling went on for much longer than the movie. You know? So there was always one person they always asked about from that movie. It was always the same person. Whenever they said, "Who's that guy?" we would laugh and say the guy's name. So who stood out? One person. Do you remember one person who stood out from that movie for you? This is a test now.
It's a test, yeah. I watched it a while ago, so I'll give me that. It was a fair while ago, maybe even 6 months ago. I don't know, but it was a while back. But the one person who jumps into my head, there was an older fella. I can't recall his name. Dark hair. I could find out his name, but I can't think of his name. So, is that the guy?
Well, I mean, that was there. No, there's one guy.
I shouldn't say older fella either. He's not older.
No, he is. They're all there. They are. He is older. No, I know you're talking about. That's Simon, super gruff alpha male, very direct.
Yes,
but like very kind of. I mean, Simon. Yeah,
I'll have to watch it again, and I'll see if I can get it. You can tell me if you like, but run with your story, but
yeah,
I'm trying to think of the other guys in it now.
Yeah, it was. So I mean, like with that movie Satori going around like Europe and London, and we played at a London film festival, and Rick and I would each night go home and then we'd talk about it, and then we were like a band on the road, and then I said to him early on, I was like, dude, you can never say the same thing twice. Like if they ask the same question, you got to answer it differently, but you're not allowed to do this. This is our chance. Like we're going to shape ourselves as storytellers. So we did. We got really good at it, but it was like I had this profound moment sitting in, I think, what's it called? The Odeon, the Orion Odeon, maybe the Odeon Theatre, whatever. Like it's there in London, central London, main big theatre, cinema, big screen, everyone there. And I was sitting at the back, and we were watching Satori, and on the screen I was like, oh my gosh, there I am. This guy from inland, like riding like a beautiful wave at sunset. And yet here I am in the middle of London, like watching this. And I looked around the theatre and I was like, look, all these people here. And then my friends would come on the screen talking. And then some of the guys who like that guy, Simon, I call him my mean mentor, It's like we're friends, but we're not friends. We've had so much conflict over the years and, fighting and calling each other out, or him more like yelling, like and then we kind of like, now we don't talk to each other for a year or two, and now we kind of this, and then like our daughters are friends, and then and then comes on Andrew, who's kind of leans into, and he's like, he's got his high pitched voice, and you can see the veins straining in his throat, and I know, like
yes.
Yeah,
he's a huge standout. Yeah, he's a huge standout. I've seen him in other movies, I think, as well, other big wave things. Yeah, I remember the one now. But yeah, he stood out. They all stood out, to be honest. I'm trying to think of his name. But yeah.
So Andrew Marr was the guy who people would always go like, who's that guy? And we would go, Andrew. Andrew Marr, like he leans in and he goes, and he had all these like big eyes, and he's straining and he's telling you about,
Yeah.
So yeah,
passionate.
Passionate and just, yeah. But it's also, it's hard also because we live so close together. We've got this, like I said, the conflict with Simon, but like any number of those men in there, we've had conflict, and we've had this and that, or we've had friends, or we're all sort of like brothers in arms on the front line. But then as soon as you get back to the beach, he's an idiot, But if he's dying or drowning, like we all get in there, I mean, Simon himself, the crazy big alpha, we had a rescue with him. Like a couple of years ago, where we got to Simon, and he completely dislocated his shoulder. I mean, he's like in his mid-50s. Like, he surfed Jaws when he was 52. I mean, he's just like completely, like, he weighs 120 kilograms. Like, he's riddled with parts of body that need operations, and yet like he's out there going for it. But he dislocated his shoulder, and we rescued him. We dragged him out, and then to the doctor's room. And my friend Jason, who was wearing nothing but a Speedo by this stage, you know what a Speedo is,
Yeah,
wearing nothing but a Speedo in the doctor's room. I'm still got my impact vest on, partially inflated, full suit, wearing everything. And then Simon's like this, and we drag Simon in, dislocated shoulder, and the doctor who should have just been in Vietnam or something, like he should have been like those kind of doctor, was like, Simon's like, give me a general anesthetic and just like pull the shoulder into place. And you never do that, you never, some GP never pulls your shoulder in, and it's, but Simon's like that. And we're like, all right. I'm like, wow, what's going to happen now? Okay. And the doctor, like this Vietnam style doctor, you see his eyes go like this. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I'll have a go. I'll have a swing at this. So and there's Jason in his Speedo, and I'm like fully suited and booted, ready to go. Like, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. So Simon lies down on the floor like this, and I'm like, whoa, hang on. I'm saying to the doctor, I know nothing, but I'm like, doctor, hey, like, shouldn't you check when you last ate? Isn't that a thing? Like when you last, because you can throw up while you're under anesthetic. And he's like, oh, the doctor says to Simon, when did you last eat? And Simon's like, says something. But Simon's like, we're doing this no matter what. Okay. So that's it. We hold him down. Jason's holding him there. Like, I've got Simon's like head in my lap. This is the dude who like yells at me, swears at me, shouts me, like, get out of the water. You can't surf here. And I was like lying in my lap. And the doctor's leaning over, injects him. Simon goes out, and I'm like, now what? Okay, I'm looking at Jason in his Speedo. The doctor puts his, like, I don't even know if the doctor's done it before. And the doctor puts his, like, foot in Simon's armpit, and he like, wakak, and you hear the shoulder go in. I'm like, okay, we're done. And the doctor's stoked, he's like, oh yeah. Jason there. And then now I've got this like crazed alpha male who wants to kill me sometimes with his head in my lap. And I'm like, my face is like this far from his. And I'm like, Simon, oh, hi, you okay? Just like, and you can see him going from like, his eyes kind of clicking in, then he's looking at me. And I'm thinking like, geez, there's got to be better people for this guy to be like coming around, staring into his face. And he kind of comes around, and then as soon as chance he can, he wants to get up, and then we kind of drag him outside, and then they go hit the beers, and I go home. and it's it's a wild thing, and these are the guys who are on the screen while we're doing the London Film Festival, and so it's all storytelling. It's incredible.
I love it. He definitely stood out for me. I'm not sure why, but as soon as you mentioned the other guy, I can picture his face. I can picture everything about him now. Yeah, and I can hear his voice in my head. Yeah.
So the irony is that other guy who you're talking about, Andrew and Simon are toe partners. Were toe partners, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I thought Satori was great. I loved how they got into the stories a bit. And that's what I love doing. I love hearing these, the people behind the stories. And I love hearing it from the people themselves, not just, second, third hand.
It's so good. I want to ask you a question now, again. I like asking you questions. Yeah. So you somehow got hold of me through, again, this is Rick. So Rick, who's now become my business partner, the director who made Satori, you somehow got hold of Rick because you found a clip that was in Satori of Jake.
Yes.
So now, I mean, I love giving context, like Jake and Simon, who I've just described, general anesthetic dude, are super close friends. And Jake was in Satori too. And you found a clip of Jake on one of our days at Dungeons taking a truly horrific wipeout. And then somehow I ended up giving you like a voiceover context to where I was on that day. How did you get to that point? How did we
and we will get into that story. Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that story that you told me after. But so basically everything that we put out on Instagram, it comes straight from the person. So I'm not just grabbing clips and just sharing them randomly. It's coming from the person. We do bios now and that sort of thing. So every clip I've ever put on Instagram, I've basically got permission to, and all the stories I get. So I back and forth with the person to get the story. And I found that clip, and I remembered I think, I don't know if it was Rick who might have shared it, but anyway, I came across it. And I reached out to Rick, and I realized it was from a movie, and I watched Satori, and I thought, geez, that's a bloody good movie. And I was back and forthing with Rick, and I thought, well, we may as well, if we can, promote the movie a little bit as a clip from the movie. But, is there someone who can, I didn't want to just share the clip and go watch Satori. Is there someone who can give me a bit of a story? So, because that's sort of one of the major things we do is to tell those stories. And he's like, yeah, sweet, I'll get onto it now. I'll get back to you. And then that's when you and me got in touch.
Okay.
And we put it together.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'll put that actual clip on.
Because that's a real...
Sorry?
That's a real skill set that you have. That like I've come across like many people over the years, or who have this ability to, they're storytellers and then they're story hunters. And it's like you're a story hunter, which is a very specific skill set. So anyway.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Well, it came about. It's probably similar to your story when you said you went and surfed dungeons. Yeah. Finally, and you felt that you're awake. And it was kind of like that. I had this. Back when COVID was happening and all that sort of thing, I got this thing. I was training jiu-jitsu. I hurt my neck a little bit, and I got this thing called Bell's palsy, and it paralyzed this half of my face.
Oh,
and
wow.
So within 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So it's still not better. It's not going to get better. It's how it is now. And so I couldn't blink, I couldn't surf. You know, I wasn't going outside because I was just uncomfortable. It was just sagged down. It was a mess. So anyway, I had a lot of time at home, and I was sort of trolling the internet, just looking for stories. Like I've never had that kind of free time to, you know, go read stories. And because I couldn't surf at the time because I couldn't blink or anything, so I couldn't surf. And I was trolling for stories. And there was a couple out there, but there was no just, you know, like Instagram, for example, people just take a clip, share a clip, there's no story to it.
Yeah.
And that was a part of, you know, the foundation of what a classic has now become, was trying to fill that void of something I needed. So I wanted to hear about these people. I wanted to hear and almost live through them in a way, and people I can relate to. And that's where that came about.
Amazing. I love, I mean, like motivation. I mean, it's like context is such a big part of a story. That's how, like I told you with the stories now, the guys in Satori, context. But then also like motivation is such a key thing. Like, why do you do it? That's very interesting to me, because I've also stumbled into it. The idea that in a world where everything's quicker and faster and consumed, there's a concept of like long form discussion where you actually get to listen to people talking, and it's a skill set. I realize that, you know, some people, like it's part nature, part nurture. You know, some of it is like you're born as a storyteller, but then like you practice the skill set. And I very much feel like in an increasing world, because as a commercial photographer, I increasingly feel like AI is moving through like the Grim Reaper, which is terrifying for me, because like the career I have now, I will not have in the next year or two. It's going to be gone. So I've had to look at stuff where it's like, okay, like this is my chance now to tell real stories, to make content that actually like that matters. So this is why, like, I mean, it's
amazing. I love it, and I think a classic sort of, it's becoming a brand, and the goal. Well, I always had a goal. I wanted to have some kind of surfing, fishing brand, and my partner, he's had his own brand in the past, and it's come with storytelling, because during that time I was sort of talking to people. I was hunting these stories, and then I thought, we got to put this into the brand itself. We got to put it in there, because I found a huge thing that got left behind. So with bigger brands, I won't name any, but you know, especially now that a lot of them have gone corporate, they show their sponsored athletes only. So Kelly Slater, Mick Fanning, they'll show their guys, and I totally understand that, but their guys can only do, or girls, of course, so like they can only do so much. But there's so many incredible people out there doing wild stuff that only showing those select few people in a way holds the whole industry back.
Gotcha.
Because you're not seeing everybody else. And that's something we sort of believe in here. It's like, it's not about one or two people. This is about everybody. Like, represent yourself, get out there and tell your own story, and you know, we want to hear it.
But then also, I mean, like, practically what you find is that skill set of an incredible athlete doesn't always translate into an incredible storyteller. And I think that's where I come in. That's why I've had my opportunities that I have, is because I'm very much a middle order surfer, but I know how to tell a good story, and hopefully it's a story that's got different elements to it. It's not just the technical side of the height of the wave and the weight of the board and whatever.
Yeah.
But you want to ask me some more stuff? Should we see if I can?
Yeah, I do, mate. Well, you mentioned that one before, where you and me connected, and that's obviously another monster out there called Sunset Reef. So let's get into that. Give me a bit of background on it. I don't really know a whole lot about it, to be honest with you. So the break itself.
Okay, good. So, all right. So we spoke about the geographical rarities. We've spoken about dungeons. So I mean, dungeons is like, I've used this quote before, but I say it's like, it's my wife's rogue cousin who taser gunned me at a family wedding, a family gathering, you know, and I loved him for it. I was like, this dude is an absolute legend. Like, you know, because actually how it came about was like, I said to him, I've got this taser gun. Like, I'll give you $10, which is probably like $1. I said, if you let me taser you. And he was like, cool, bro, do it. He said, but just, and I tasered him. And I was like, oh man, I think so much more of you. It's ridiculous. And then I was like, oh damn, now you got to taser me. And we bonded over that. So, I mean, Dungeons is like that. It's like the rogue cousin who tasers you. But, it's unpredictable and it's raw and it's terrifying and it breaks here, it breaks there. It kind of, it breaks in shallow water, and then it breaks in deep water. And then when you get washed through, then you lose your board. Then you've lost everybody for half an hour and then you got to look for the jet ski. It's just, it's the whole, but then you've got Sunset Reef, which is at the end of my road. Like it's literally the closest place. Like I walk there. I walk to Sunset Reef and I paddle off the beach and I paddle out hair dry when my hair is longer or when it's, like hair dry out to the back. And it's a beautiful regal piece of rock that stretches out. It's a beautiful reef where you've got a long, slow roll in. It's a perfect, you can go left or right. It's the closest thing we have to a perfect wave. And it's beautiful. And I call it Sunset, the beautiful dancing lady with a machete, because it's like it's just perfect and beautiful, and you can get the perfect roll in, and then you can set a line, and you can surf as well as you can. But my gosh, if you time it wrong, the beatings are very, very, very vicious. It is like getting chopped with a sharp blade, and it will, we've had some truly terrifying, terrible experiences out there. Dungeons, at least you'll get beaten and you'll get rolled. The waves are big and wild and raw, but you'll take first wave full strength, like the force of the elements of nature sort of passing through you, and then the next wave will be like 70% strength, then like 50, and then 30, and then you rolled into a channel. But whereas Sunset will go 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, and will wash you maybe, it can wash you like 700-800 meters, and by the time it cycles you out, you really are, there's men and women who've been through that too, like, I'm never doing this ever again in my entire life. I'm going to go and do something else. So you have these two waves, and those are two geographical rarities: Dungeons and Sunset.
Are they close by?
Yeah, what we have is, so like the place you asked me to pronounce earlier, it's called Kommetjie.
Yep.
It's like Kommetjie. It's an Afrikaans word, which I think Kommetjie means Kommetjie is the English pronunciation, but Kommetjie is like on the peninsula of Cape Town. It's the blunt tip of Africa, and we've got a launching point here where we can launch with our jet skis. And to get to Dungeons, you have to go past Sunset. So at the end of my road is literally got Sunset there, one reef, and then if I look straight out across maybe 4 or 5 kilometers away on the other side of the bay is Dungeons. So they're directly opposite, like line of sight, but you can only access them line of sight by a jet ski, or you've got to drive the long way around, which will take you like 45 minutes. But in a good day, what we do is you'll go on the ski and you'll look at Sunset, and you'll maybe get a few waves there. But then you go over to Dungeons and you surf there, and you get Sunset on the way back, or you go between the two. It's a very extravagant way of surfing. But where you'll have, like, if you've got Dungeons here, then you'll have like Sunset here, and if this is Mount Everest, then you've got K2 next to it.
Right.
So it's like that, you've got two peaks, one which is like Dungeons would be the famous, whoa, that's like you surf Dungeons, but then you'll have K2 next to it, which is Sunset, which will be like the quieter, lesser known one, which is the better wave. Yeah. So K2 is the more technical climb, but right. Everest gets the fame. Yeah.
Does it get as big?
Yeah, geez, man, it gets big.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first truly, I mean, you said like when you do the podcast, you'll drop some pictures in there, but there's a picture in there of me in 2010 on my first truly big, gigantical open ocean, enormous wave, which is a black and white picture. That was in 2010. That was sunset on a windless day. So I've ridden just maybe paddled into 325-foot waves in my life. One was at Dungeons, and two were at Sunset. So yeah, they both get equally big.
Yeah. Okay. Good to have them both close to home, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You did tell me a story. We briefly spoke about it before, and it was a wild one. It's a pretty crazy story. There's no photos of this one at Sunset Reef, and when you sent me that was actually a part of the inspiration to get this podcast up and running. Because actually listening to you tell it, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've had a few voice messages for storytelling. I love it, and that story's great. So hearing it was special, and I'd love to hear it again. So what happened that day? Because Dungeons was firing too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So that was 2018, and it was whilst Rick was shooting Satori. So we'd had a couple of days. Rick was capturing footage at a couple of the places. I was partnering him with it. We were facilitating bits and pieces of it. And we had just like at one of these big swells that came up, a windless swell with a long high period, which means that it's traveled a long way and there's a lot of energy and there's enough space between the waves that it's not as dangerous. But anyway, the waves are maximum height and strength. So it was a long period swell with no wind, which is a big thing for us in Cape Town. And when the swell popped up, I was like, oh my gosh, no, I'm flying to Germany for work. Because I've got a side gig, not a side gig, whatever. Like I work for airlines. So I was like, oh no, I've got to go to Germany. Like this is terrible. And I've got this thing, which is like surf alone, die alone, because I've seen people nearly die and drown in big waves, and we've done rescues and stuff. So anyway, and the swell popped up, and I had to fly to Germany, and it was a really big one. So I was like, oh shucks, man. So I went down, like, just hoping someone would be there. Went down to Sunset Reef early morning. I had to leave for the airport at like 9:00 in the morning or something, and drove down in the absolute darkness, suited up, inflation vest on, everything ready to go, big wave gun, and I could see sunset. So Sunset Reef I can access. You don't have to go on a jet ski. Like I said, you can paddle out hair dry from the beach, and I could see, like in the gloom, I was like, oh my gosh, sunset is full size, and there's no wind. So I was like, to me, it looked like, I was like, oh, maybe it's 15 to 18, but it was more like, it was bigger than that. I don't know if people know what the measurement is, 15 to 18, but it's like a really big wave would be 3 to 4 stories high. Like, the maximum size you can paddle into would be around maybe 5 stories high. So anyway, the waves were 3 to 4 stories high at the back, and I was alone, and I was like, oh no, surf alone, die alone. And I was like, gee, I'm going to Germany. But it was like when you surf really big waves, when there's a lot on the line. So I don't like doing it when I feel like I'm going to die or my family's well-being's on the line. But if I feel like, oh man, if I blow this, like I'm going to blow a job or I'm going to miss something important, it makes it even more like, but what if I don't blow it? Like, what if I pull this off, And I was like, and then a guy kind of pulled up in the parking lot, and I was like, that's enough for me, knowing that he might come out enough. I'm sure at least if I'm floating face down in the channel, maybe at least he can get to me in time and turn me over or something. That's how you think, When a big wave swell's coming, I say I go to my own funeral, 100 times before, and then when I stop going to my funeral in my mind, then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to die. We're going to do this. So by that stage, I'd stopped going to my own funeral, but at least I thought if I'm face down, someone can turn me up. That's worst case scenario. It doesn't happen. Anyway, I got to the back, and it was truly giant. It was really 3 to 4 stories high. Maybe, I don't know. It was very big, but it was some of the most perfect waves I've ever paddled into. And I still remember that first wave tipping over, feeling the rail, dropping to the bottom. And it was just this feeling of like, oh my gosh, holy smokes. It's utterly perfect. And it was in the gloom and no one was out. And I never surf alone, but I surfed alone. It was beautiful. And I rode 3 unbelievable waves like this alone with no one to see it. And after the third one, I was like, oh my gosh, I've done it. I've actually done it. Now I've got to go to Germany. So it was that. Paddled in, like showered off. Hey, my love, how are you doing? And she was like, how was it? And I was like, no, it was good. It was good. I'm going to go to the airport now. And, and I knew that, Satori was happening and Rick was filming and the guys were going over to dungeons. And I was, you got that feeling of like, oh, okay. So I just climbed K2, but Everest's the one and it's on, and you love to be in the films and love to be there and be the dude. And so I was missing it, but and got to the airport, flew to Germany, and I got there that night, and the clip that you're talking about is Jake, and
yep.
Unbeknownst to me during that, I mean, Dungeons was superb. It was just big and hollow and terrifying and dangerous and enormous and all that stuff. And Jake rode a terrifying wave. Maybe you'll show the clip of it, but he.
Yep, I'll put it on here.
Jake dropped into this thing and was looking for a barrel, and it threw over into an utterly impossible, enormous barrel, and he got pitched forward, and it's just the most ferocious, wild beating. So I got to Germany, and someone had sent me a picture of this clip of Jake, a photo, and I phoned Jake, and I was like, Jake, bro, I just saw this picture of you on Dungeons. You did it. And Jake was like, yeah, man, yeah. And he told me his whole thing. I did this and I did that and I was there. And he was like, yes, bro, you missed it. And I said, no, bro, I didn't miss it. I surfed Sunset. It was kind of similar size. I surfed Sunset. And he was like, yes, bro, where are you now? I said, I'm in Germany. And he kind of hesitated. He was like, Germany? He's like, but that was this morning. I know. No, I'm in Germany.
With no photos either.
No photos, bro.
Nothing.
I can make it as big as I want because there was no one to see it. The tree fell in the forest and no one was there to hear it.
We'll call it 6 stories. We'll run with that.
60 odd.
But yeah, well, speaking of those dangers, surf alone, die alone. You've actually done a few rescues, haven't you?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. I have.
And life-saving ones at that, haven't you?
I have. And that story that I told you, like with Simon and Jason in his Speedo, and like I laugh about it. And it's a great story to tell. But that next day, I went for a surf, and something small happened, and I had such a raging, angry, punching the water, shouting, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I regged, oh my gosh, I've figured out. I'm getting post-traumatic stress from these things because it was
right.
Like bona fide, genuine post-traumatic stress. And so I made a decision. I was like, okay, I know some people who do this stuff. I've got to find someone who's around this stuff. I knew someone who's a first response paramedic in an ambulance. And I got hold of her and I said, hey, man, like, how do you deal with this stuff? Like people dying or, about to die or dying or they've seen these situations. Like, what do you, and she said, who are these people that you're feeling? And I said, well, these are my closest friends, really, or my mean mentor. And she was like, oh, dude. She's like, when we're in that situation, we arrive in a scene. If we know somebody, we're out immediately. We say to the people, I can't do this.
Yep.
I can't be here because this is. And here I am, being in these close proximity with. By that stage, it was 4 close friends within a period of a year and a half.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's and because I'm so interpersonal, like I'll just do it. Whatever. I had a brother who died when I was 21, and there was nothing I could do about it. And what I started to realize was with these rescues, when I was being around the situation, all 4 had a good outcome. And where I couldn't affect the outcome with my brother, like I had been able to have a hand in rescuing these guys. And what I realized, I thought like, but what happens if I'm in a situation where one of these people dies? I realized I'm not okay in my head, because like I haven't properly processed the original trauma, which was which was my brother's death. So I realized that with each successive rescue, I was now accessing a deeper kind of unresolved trauma. So I embarked on a journey of kind of trying to, like, all right, I've got to go back to original trauma, and I've got to go through the sadness of what happened with my brother, and then work backwards from there, and reach a point where it's like, to reference my faith again, Brew, there's only one Jesus, and you're not him. Someone's going to die. It's not up to you. You can't. Yeah, and at some stage, someone is going to die, and you've got to be able to go through this in a healthy way. So all that to say, yes, I've been in two particularly bad rescue situations. One with a guy who I mentored for, he's like a son to me. I have a few. I call them my saltwater sons. Not a few. Like I've got two in particular who are like my sons. I'll never have sons, but I love them. And one of these guys, we were surfing, like, I'm starting to say, like, again, one rescue. Do you want to hear about the rescues? I'll try and keep it
absolutely. Yeah. If you're happy to talk about them.
Yeah. So it's good. It's part of my processing the trauma.
I'm here to help.
So one rescue happened at Dungeons, one happened at Sunset. The young guy's name is Odd. His name is Odd. ODD, Odd. And we were surfing with him at Sunset, and he had a situation where he went down pretty hard, and I saw him from a distance. It was just three of us out there, and I could see he kind of like gave me like a lazy drunk shaka, and I was like, oh no, he's concussed. That's what I thought, because it's a big thing for us with big wave surfers, particularly the young guys. The young guys are very prone to concussion. So he was and then he got hit again by another wave, and moved right the way to inside. And by now, the other guy I was surfing with, Matthew, was going like, bro, like, like, watch him. And I saw Odd, and he came up and he kind of waved like that in a drunken fashion. I was like, no, like something's happened. And when I got to him, bro, I heard like just terrible lines you don't want to hear too much in life, which is like, I can't feel my legs.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, he was 22, powerful athlete, ready, properly prepared, very experienced, like a few years of mentoring deep, and he was paralyzed from the chest down, which was terrible. And and it was so Matthew and I, his name's Matthew Bromley, he's a professional surfer. He's the guy who's now broken his ribs and is supposed to go and surf Jaws.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep.
Matt Bromley. So also Matthew's one of my saltwater sons, But anyway, these guys are like 20 years younger than me. And so that's it. Like I've got to lie under Odd, and I've got to hold his head like this in my hands, and I'm lying underneath him, and he doesn't know where he is, and he's just saying, I can't feel my legs. And Matthew wraps his leash around my arm here like this, and he starts dragging us back to the beach. And I ditch both of our guns that are knocking against us in the whitewater. And every time a wave hits me, I get rolled under, and I wrap myself around Odd, like wrap my legs and arms around him, and I'm screaming underwater, no! I can just imagine his spine going like, and I come up and I'm like, hey, fine, how are you doing? And he's like, but a long swim, we drag him to the beach, and we drag him up. It's terrifying. Like I'm holding him in my arms, like he's my brother, just kind of just trying to rescue this guy, feel this thing. And then Matthew goes off and calls a sea rescue, and they come, and we drag him up the beach. And we traveled to hospital with him. There's pictures. I sent you pictures of him lying like.
Yep, I will put them on.
Full neck brace, the whole thing. Him and his now fiance, just like terrible thing. And and we get to the hospital, and the doctor examines him and says, "All right, your back's broken in two places." And it's just like, oh, holy smokes! And anyway, doctor comes back, send him for X-rays, and comes back and says, "I don't know what's happened between you going for the X-ray and now, but your back's perfect." So, I mean, we had another little sort of mystical intervention there, which is another story unto itself. But the thing is, like, I mean, Odd has gone from paralyzed to we took him out of the hospital a few days later in a wheelchair, and slowly starting to walk, and he's made a full recovery.
Oh,
yeah,
jeez,
that's quite a journey, man. You know, like it's not just some dude you're rescuing; it's someone who's like, you know, like a son to you. So that's very difficult. Yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
No, I don't. I don't
good.
Know. Odd doesn't know what to say. Odd's still like, he doesn't like talking about it or watching. You know, it's very difficult for him to watch videos of it. I videoed him in the hospital. He's like, dude, I can't watch that. I mean, he's moved on and stuff. You know, he still surfs big waves, etc. But you know, he's channeling his life force in another direction now. Yeah. So it's tough, you know. And then the other one was out of dungeons with Patrick, who was the guy who we walked into dungeons for the first time with. So I mean, each of these stories has connection and context. And Patrick and I walked in surf dungeons together for the first time, and then in 2019 we were surfing together, and Patrick got hit in the head by his board right over there, and you know, just unbelievably, you know, because you get separated in big waves so quickly, and I actually surfaced next to him, and we got washed in, and Patrick was face down. You know, he didn't come up, and he was face down, and I managed to get him, and I turned him on his back, and he was nowhere. He was out. He was just like breathing foam out and terrible. Managed to drag him wide, and again, this time I wasn't as calm as I was with Odd. I was just screaming my one-word prayer over and over again, you know, and just pulled him wide, and it took a long time before, you know, we were alone really, and eventually we managed to get a boat to come over to us, and he started to come round, and got him in the boat and got him to shore, not knowing what was up. And by the time we got back to the shore, and the ambulance services had arrived, and he was coming around, and he kind of knew who we were and where he was. And I just leapt into the boat, and again I did that same thing. I just wrapped my arms around him, and I just wept in him, you know. It's amazing. Yeah. And he's one of my closest friends, and that's the thing of these rescues. It's like one of the greatest life privileges. What greater privilege could you have than to like rescue a friend, you know? I mean, maybe as great a privilege would be like to have a friend rescue you, you know?
Yeah. And no ifs or buts about it, saving life.
Do you want to come put your head in here quickly? Come quickly. I'm doing a podcast with an
say hello?
man. Look here. This is one of my daughters.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. You a surfer too?
Yeah.
Yeah? Get out there on the big gun?
Not on the gun.
Not on the gun, not yet.
No.
No.
I'm surf always.
That's all right. So do I.
Yeah.
See you later.
So I mean, it's incredible privilege. Eh? What greater privilege is there that someone would risk their life for you, or rescue you, or you could do that for them? Hey? And that ties in beautifully with probably the main reason why I love big wave surfing, is like the friendship and that proximity of death and affirming life, and you know, but it's something that we pass through. We can't live there, but we pass through, and
yeah, mate. Thanks for sharing that. I could tell it wasn't easy. But,
it wasn't easy.
Stories that are got to be told. Like they're good to hear for other people as well. But you did mention mentors, and you're a mentor to a few of those guys, the younger guys coming through. So what do you do with them? And who do you have there? It's just those two boys you're talking about?
No, hey. There's been many people over the years. One girl so far, just generally because I would say ladies are too intelligent to risk their life and limb in the way that we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah. Just way too intelligent like this. Yeah. But there's been a few guys over the years, guys who I've Generally, I don't. For a little while, it took people who were like anyone who was brave enough to have a swing, but there's very real problems with that. So I've stopped doing that. But I've taken a few guys who were young up to a point where they've surpassed me considerably as surfers and experience, which is very difficult actually as a mentor to have someone pass you. There's equal pride and a feeling of like, I can't go where you go anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very high value for me, and my kind of traditional old school values are, there's a certain kind of masculine manhood, not a certain kind, that like masculine manhood can only be imparted through that kind of interaction with men, and in those, there's a certain kind of thing that happens in those very dangerous risk spaces, where you don't particularly like somebody, like I described with Simon and I, that friction, but there's like this, but I will risk my life for you, and we going through this together. I imagine it's like that in wartime situations too,
Yep.
And there's a couple of guys. There's a few men over the years. Yeah. Do you want me to tell you about one?
If you like, yeah. If you're up for it, and if you got the time.
Yeah, I got the time. Yeah. So let's see. There's I've got a young guy, Fabian Capagnola, who when he was 15 years old, he phoned me and said, I want to learn how to surf big waves, and I've taken Fabian. Fabian's now 23. And
I've actually done a story with him too.
You have? I saw that. With
he sent it through.
Weird wipeouts at Jaws.
Yeah, so he sent a voice clip through as well, which was another piece of the puzzle for this. So he sent a great voice clip through about what was actually going on. So yeah, that was a while ago.
I think I've sent you a picture of him. I've sent you a picture of him. You should put that up if you can. There's
well, yeah.
Fabian, and he's got like 20 cigarettes in his mouth, something like that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Real healthy. Big wave training.
I call him Vanilla Ice. If you know Vanilla Ice is, it's just like that's perfect for him.
Yeah. Well, sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, he's 23 now. You're saying?
Yeah. Fabian's 23, and you're like and just become an unbelievably accomplished surfer. Like he's part of a tow team at Nazaré, and he surfs Jaws now, and Waimea Bay, and Mavericks, and he's traveled around, and he's just he's humble, and he's kind, and he cares about people, and he's the main thing that I offer guys is not, I can't teach anybody to surf well. Like I coach guys now or who are already exceptional surfers. Like I'm good with that. I can't make you a good surfer, but I can teach guys how to survive the most ferocious beatings and live, and I can teach you to care about other people. And to not to see big wave surfing as some kind of a collective, and to be aware of other people. And Fabian's incredible like that. He cares about people. He's kind, and he's generous with his time. And if he's got one surfboard, he will lend you his one surfboard. If he's, he will literally give you, if he's got 100 euros and you need it, he'll give it to you, and he'll say it's fine. I'll make a way. And that's what I love about Fabian, and with the other guys who I've mentored too. We don't need to go into the specifics of them, but the principle is that you say to them, like, you do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself. You can't give yourself CPR. If you get into trouble, you want someone who's got your back and who's looking out for you. You don't want someone who's hunting like the biggest wave of the day purely and is not watching out for you. When you disappear from the lineup, you want someone who's going to go, where are you? And you want someone who's capable and who's trustworthy and who will tell the truth and
yeah.
No, it's old school. It's an opportunity to hand over purpose and meaning and value and integrity and kindness and traditional values.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's good that you get the opportunity to do it as well. It's an important thing. But mate, I've almost taken up enough of your time. But while I was doing a bit of research on you, and you mentioned Rick Wall before.
Oh yeah.
So you guys, like I said, that Satori is a pretty amazing movie. And I noticed another one you did called what's it called? And Yet I Remain. Mate, that looks pretty incredible. So do you want to give me a quick rundown on that? What's that about and how'd that come together?
Yeah, so the connection with And Yet I Remain and my own sort of processing my own kind of, trauma, as I said, with losing a brother and then realizing I was tapping into stuff through subsequent rescues is, in my career as a commercial photographer, we were shooting stuff. We were shooting for Adidas Germany here in Cape Town, and we had a big crew and a commission and stuff, and working with athletes. And while we were shooting, you tend to work with people who look like athletes, but they're kind of not really athletes. They're models. And then we were shooting. I looked over my shoulder, and I'm like, "There's a dude standing there with like one of those metal legs, bionic legs,
prosthetic." Yeah, yep.
And I'm like, "Oh, now we're talking." I'm like, "Oh, wow, now we got a story. Like, what's this guy? What's this deal?" And I was very careful not to say, like, I didn't want to say what happened. So anyway, as we were shooting him, and I said to this guy, his name's Caleb. I said to him, I gestured at his leg, and I said, "Brew," which is the same as bro, whatever you guys say. I said, "Brew, how long did it take for you to get used to this new version of yourself?" And he looked at me and he said, "I'm still not used to it." And I was like, "Dude, how long has it been like this? How long have you been like that?" And he was like, "I think it's been 4 years." So I said to him, I spoke to him like he was one of my saltwater sons. I didn't know him. And I said, "Hey, Brew, you got to go for trauma counseling." I said, "Not just for your sake, but for the sake of your future wife and children." And that was it. We kind of moved on from there, but I didn't forget about this guy, and I thought about him. I thought about him quite a bit. And on that documentary that I was telling you about that we did with great white sharks, the National Geographic one, like I posted something on Instagram, and he contacted me and said, "Hey, if you ever do something with sharks, let me know." And I was like, "Sharks?" Anyway, it subsequently turned out that this guy Caleb was body surfing with his brothers when he was 18 or 19 years old. And a great white came out of nowhere, ripped his leg off, came back, tried to go for the other one, grabbed his brother's fin, and they dragged him up the beach. And as he was dying on the beach around friends and family, his femoral artery spasmed and cramped, which means that he didn't bleed out. And they managed to get him to hospital in time, and he lived. And 3 weeks later, this guy was back at university with his new leg. Or
3 weeks.
3 weeks later.
Oh.
And I was like, "Whoa, bro, 3 weeks." Like, that's a time bomb right there. What do you mean 3 weeks later?
Yeah.
So my motivation, like I said to you earlier, like your story hunter motivation, like my motivation for making this movie was like, all right, I've told this he needs trauma counseling, so we're going to facilitate something where I can give him some kind of trauma counseling, as we're going to make a movie about this dude. Like, I thought, what's it going to look like for a dude like this to go and like free dive with one fin? Can it even be done? So so that's it. I contracted Rick, and I said, "Let's make a movie about this dude," and that's what we did, And we started talking to Caleb, and he's very positive, and he's got a certain delivery, and I kept stopping him and saying, "No, you're not going to say it like that." And we questioned him, and through the process, we started getting him to process his own trauma over this event, and we taught him how to free dive. We took him out into the ocean, and we shot him, and we did lots of dialogue in between, and we gathered some shark footage, and I got him to think about it. Yeah.
So I only briefly saw it before we jumped on, but where can you watch that?
We made the movie specifically for film festivals, so we don't have an online link at the moment. It's touring the world festival. So if anyone who's listening or watching wants to include it in their festival, it's only like 8 minutes long. But it's a short film that gets shown at film festivals. In time, we'll put it up online. But actually, Caleb, in the build up to that movie, I wanted to see how strong his paddling was, so I put him on one of my guns, and we paddled him out towards sunset on the inside, where I thought, no, it's fine. There's no waves. It's going to be fine. And I didn't put a leash on him. and he lost the board, and next thing, like the dude who's been attacked by a shark was floating, kicking wildly out there in the ocean without a board. I had to go and retrieve his board and leave this guy. So yeah, I mean, Dougal's shark trauma counselling it gets done in the School of Hard Knocks.
Spot on.
Yeah. Processed a bit of trauma right there. Yeah.
Well, you hope so. You hope he processed it.
Yeah.
Didn't cause any more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. But look, Dougal, mate, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I do look forward to doing it again. So, like, you're an inspiration to many, like not just the people you mentor. So anyone who wants to check out your stuff, jump over to your Instagram. It's Dougal Paterson, isn't it? DougalPaterson. And you have a website, which is dougalpaterson.com.
Yes.
So thanks, mate. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan. Love what you do, bro. Like, maximum respect for your story hunter skills. And thank you for giving me a chance to talk.